do a quick icebreaker activity. So if you go ahead and wiggle your mouse and get into your computer, there should be a website up, Mentimeter. It says, what do you hate most about documentation? Right. So what you'll do, you go ahead and write a word, press enter. Whatever word you type will pop up on the screen.
And you can write multiple words.
Yeah. Once you type a word, it'll pop up. If you see a word that you agree with, go ahead and type it, and it'll make the word bigger. That just means someone's thinking like you are. Okay, we got some words up here. And just so you guys know, the session today is being recorded. So, watch those words. No, sorry. We got a couple of ones coming in. Anything, all things documentation. What do you hate?
Just do a customer. Why did you tell me to enter a word in?
So you type a word, press enter, and then it's going to ask, then you can type another word and press enter. We got a lot of words coming in. So if you're still thinking of them, go ahead and keep typing. I'll start reading some out loud. We have grammar, short, paperwork, punctuations are missing, to document, so just period. Okay, cool. Writing, the time that it takes, typing, typos, missing, a lot of people put that one, drawn out, rhetorical, doing it daily, doing it daily again, and then time consuming. Okay, so I'd like to hear from you guys. Would anyone like to share a word that they put up there and why? Now's the time to get it off the chest.
So we can talk about it.
I put grammar and punctuation missing, and it's just annoying on my end to try to decipher what's going on. Yeah.
There. Anybody else? Yeah.
I put typos, which goes along with the grammar. Some words are constant, you know, it's the same word they misspell every time, or they do, and it's like,
Yeah.
you remind them and say things, but it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's not the first time we've seen it up there too. The last group had said the same thing. So they must be a common thread. What else?
I almost want to get into that rhetorical.
Yeah, I want to know too. We're calling you out.
See, I know
You just had to look at me, didn't you, Abby? And what was your point besides calling me out?
Why did you choose rhetorical?
Because a lot of it is just repeating what you've already written, and it just kind of makes you write the same thing. Especially like, there's just a lot of that where it should just be, you know, all in one box instead of having to go and then ask the same roundabout way question. So yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Pretty redundant too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boring to read.
Yeah, I see. Someone put short.
That was also me.
Yeah.
Just for like, Abby and I actually just were talking about documentation, like sometimes it's just ridiculous to me that in like an 8-hour shift or even a double, so 16 hours, sometimes it's, you know, woke up, took meds, ate, took meds, showered, this and that. And it just doesn't seem, that's not enough documentation for that many hours.
Yeah.
Copy and paste, and I put that on there.
Okay. Copy. Oh, so like someone's doing a shift note.
Yeah.
And it's the same one for the next day.
Yeah,
the
they
next
copy and paste and put the.
Oh, I have a comment about that.
Yeah.
I've had a staff member that used a name from another house, Kristen, and put it on every one of my house, and every single one of them, all 11. He put that name. So he not only
I've
copied.
read them where they start out with one name and change to another name midway
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so lazy or ish. Yeah, that's a lot. It's just like all over the place, seems like. So missing. Multiple people put missing. Who wants to share why? Yeah.
I just, because we gotta track it, and it's just, when it's not there, so I think just missing documentation, like,
Yeah.
just really, like, don't understand like that.
Agree with
Why
you.
the staff really get it, you know, that this is what you get paid to do, just do it, you know, make sure you put your shit, you know, like, it's not that.
We're gonna talk about track and things like that.
Yeah. So there was a lot of really good words up here. There's a whole bunch. I can tell everyone's sentiment on this one. So hopefully with today's training, Kim and EJ, they're gonna get into the documentation and expectations and everything. Like I said, today's session is gonna be recorded. So let's jump
couldn't
into
say
it.
that.
It's not recorded. It's not
It's
happening.
not recorded. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about before we even talk about tracking is that I agree with you on the typos and words in there that don't make sense. I read one instead of pureed diet, it was a parade diet. But a lot of those I have tracked back when I talked to the DSPs, and they're using their phones to do their shift notes. So I've really been advocating that we have at least one, but also a tablet so that they can do their shift notes in the house before they leave. Because I'm telling you, if I could take my shift notes home and do it there, I'm probably not going to do it. I'm going to do it really fast. And so most of the time, I think the typos and the words that get mixed up are because they're talking into their phone. Siri hates me, so I think that's part of it. Plus it doesn't do spell check, and there's no punctuation. So you might look at that if you keep getting a lot of those and making sure that they're doing it before they leave their shift. We're going to start, and I'm going to move around a lot, so if I block the screen, I'm sorry. So we're going to start with the shift note tracker. Have to give props to Jess Neely. She came up with this, and I think it works really well. This, and jump in, Jess, if you want to, but we divided it up, so it is editable. So like if you don't have a 6 to 2 shift, you have a different shift, you can change those shift times. But every day, you should have a DSP sign that they've done their shift note before they leave. And then the RS should sign that they've looked at the shift note and that they know that that's there. It is documentation that people have done their notes. We don't have that right now. And so this is written documentation that they've done their notes. So it should hopefully be easier than giving verbal warning after verbal warning after verbal warning. It should also help us kind of track where you may have some problem spots so that we can coach and help others write the shift note more succinctly. But this has worked amazing at one of Jess's houses, and I know that RS, and she is big on, you do not leave this house until you do your shift notes, and their shift notes are anywhere from 90 to 100% every single month. And so I think it works very well. There was a question in the last training session about having to turn your shift notes in every 5 days. I think Mark clarified that if we use this form, you just turn it in every 30 days, but that puts a lot of responsibility on the RS to check it and the PS to check it, because it's both of those, it's both jobs, okay? So, okay. Some of the mistakes that we found are people are not putting the complete date and the complete time. They have to put AM, PM. And so a lot of times I'll just see 8 to 2, or it with no date, or just the date, and I can figure it out because I know your shift patterns. But if it's an auditor, they're not going to be able to figure it out. Okay, so making sure that's there. And in the RS and PS, must check the narrative. And I'll be honest, at this point, we've been only checking the dates and saying, okay, we've got all the shift notes there, or we don't have all the shift notes there. We've got to start checking the narratives. And just checking the dates, we're at 68%, and we need to get agency policy is 90, Medicaid policy is 87.1, so but I'd like to see us get up to 90%. So we've got a ways to go. Lauren was great enough to laminate these. We will laminate the back so that you can have 2 copies to fit by your printer or your computers, so that you have it so that they can refer to it on what actually should go into a shift note. It should also say, and I will commend people, I have seen narratives get so much better. So great job on that. And I usually will try to send an SCOM to your staff if they're doing a good job, because I've seen a lot of assisted, encourage, those kind of words, so that you know that staff are actually doing something. So if you read a shift note that says, Kim got up, she got dressed, she ate breakfast, it was biscuits and gravy, she watched TV, she went to bed, or went to her room and wanted to spend time alone. That is not a billable shift note. It didn't say anything about what the staff did to assist, and it didn't cover some of the billables. And then I see that every single day. One guy loves to watch Westerns, and he watches a Western every single day, which I know is true because I've seen him do it when I go out. But we need a little bit more on what's happening. Hopefully in an 8-hour day, it's not the same thing every single day. I also see a lot of really long shift notes or really short shift notes. We need to find it that day.
When I think some of the staff follow the shift notes, right? Kind of the style when we were doing all the ISP data, everything in one log, because it did ask what they ate, you know, and like if they were breaks or what like that, and all that stuff.
Okay, well, we're gonna talk about ISP data here in a minute, but it should include some of the stuff that they're doing, working towards the goals.
No, I'm saying like, we used to do T-logs and they stopped doing T-logs and had us do it in a different format and then they
Yeah.
changed it back to T-logs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's been confusing for me to learn how in the heck we do it here, but right now, as long as you're following diet protocol and put it in there, I have not read anything that says that we have to mention everything that they ate during the day. Now, if they have choices, yes, because that's probably in their ISP that they have choices on what they want to eat. So EJ's got some good examples when he talks about ISP data. Okay? But I have seen some that are entire books, and so I usually will SCOM and kind of say, you know, if I would condense it this way and try to give some feedback. So if you need help with some feedback or coaching, just let me know.
Are you gonna send this out to everybody?
Yes.
Will you?
Yes, there's no 21, I know.
Okay.
I have it written on my hand right here, a C for calendar to fix. But yes, we will be sending out forms. Some of the feedback we got last time is they keep changing. I get it, but all of the forms that we're gonna send out this time have been approved and standardized, and we wanna see everybody using the same forms, okay? All right, this gets a little confusing because when I wrote the policy, you can't put the year in there because ever changing. So, but I put the year here, and this is the direct policy which you have. It's the retention policy and the destruction policy. I did skip over though, you do have the shift note policy and procedure as well. I want to remind everybody that the shift notes come from the top down. So DSP should put them in, RS should be checking them, PS should be checking them, PD should be checking them. So we should not, if we have that many people checking them, we should have higher than 68%. So please read over that policy, just kind of on the chain of command, I guess.
So,
Accountability.
so to clarify, you know, we've been sending in weekly to Mark. We don't need to do that now. We can just do the monthly.
Yes.
Because we were doing weekly and monthly, now we're just gonna do just monthly. As long as we have this form in that we've checked off that we've been checking it.
Yes,
And you want the PSP to write their initials in here that they did the shift note? Is that what you,
yes.
Okay.
So it's spread into, like, the 6 to 2 has 2 columns.
Right,
They would initial that they did it,
And
and
then
you
I
would
would
initial that
initial
you
it.
checked it.
okay,
Okay, so
So
it
is
gives
it
us
simply we
documentation.
can change the dates on here, the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that, it's.
yeah. And then we're gonna just keep this in the house by their computer. Okay,
And then start over the next month.
okay. Because I have a house that stuff gets pulled off the board a lot,
I
and
would
it gets
suggest
lost.
you put it on a clipboard
Okay,
and like a red clipboard or something, and it is a requirement. Okay, it's also documentation that they did it. So if you're finding that you're missing, but we're signing out, we've got a problem.
okay.
Okay? So, the policy for, purging. I've been working a lot. How many houses, if I've done one of your houses, raise your hand. Bernard, I've done every single one of your houses. You're gonna raise your hand. Okay, so, and I'm coming out to carriage, so I'll help you get yours done. But, our medical books, as you know, are like this thick, and they're falling apart. So, we put together a new filing system for our medical books to make them go from this thick to about like this. Okay, so I'm gonna go over how we're purging these. You will find in your handouts, the policy and procedure, but you'll also find the checklist for the medical book. Okay, so when I say up-to-date documents, I mean the most current documents. So the ones that, I'm gonna use podiatry as an example, because that's every 3 months. So if you get a new podiatry consult, you're gonna put it in here, and you're gonna take the old one out, with my little hanging file. And we're gonna, this is our active hanging file. Okay, this will have 2021 active forms, but not the most current forms. I know it's confusing, but, so, up to date, stay in the book until you get a new one that supersedes that one, or revises that one. You take the old one out, this is a 2021 file, you put it in here. Now, for annual forms, a lot of those are gonna be 2020. You're gonna have an envelope like this, labeled like this, which I have a picture. And we can send out this PowerPoint, right? So, we're gonna put the year, first, or last and first name and location, and then seal it this way, because it makes it easier for the file room that we're putting together. 2020 forms have to stay at the house for a full year. Plus, when you purge and you take out your annual forms, dental, vision, they're usually dated 2020, so you're gonna put them in here. And we'll continue to purge, okay? So, I am gonna give all of you these, as well as a pen that works really well on them. So you will fill these out according to the medical checklist. So you'll have annual physical, annual dental, annual vision. Then, after that, we have a lot of different consults that not everybody gets. And so, I see in the book a lot of times, you know, Abby does not get podiatry. Then we don't need a podiatry tab for her. So, you only make tabs on the consults that they get. So, some get neuro, some do not get neuro. Some get psych, others do not get psych. But if they don't get it, there's no need to have a form or a tab in there for that consult. Does that make sense?
So what is the like, why do some of them just like have podiatry? Like, I know back 5 years ago when I first, had that location where I'm at now, like, they didn't have it. You know what I'm saying? And they were like, okay, that or trim their toenails, so.
So then you don't put podiatry in?
No, I mean,
Oh,
I mean, if it wasn't recommended, like, what, you know what I'm saying, like, what are the reasons? Like, you said, I just thought that across the board, everybody was supposed to do it.
No, I mean, if they don't get podiatry, you don't have to put it in. Are they getting it even though they don't, it's
You
not
ain't getting
even?
it, you ain't getting it. I'm not saying that.
Okay, let's talk afterwards, because I'm not getting you. Okay. So, these are all different, I mean, they can be different, and you put them in. So we no longer have all our consults, all consults. That, we do away with that, we divide them according to what the consult is. The only one that I would say I've seen and we've started putting in is ER and urgent care, because at some point, most of our folks go to urgent care and ER, and it's easy then to refer back to what was recommended there. Got it? Okay, so when it comes to the book, we're only gonna put the most recent in here. So this is the most recent position. When I go out to sites still, these are about this thick because people have just put the most recent on top of the last one, on top of the last one, on top of the last one. And we've been working hard to get the file system set up so that when we need something, we're not having to go out to every location trying to pull stuff. So all of that needs to come out. Only the current annual forms should be in here. If they're 20, they should go in here. If they're 21 consults, they should go in here, okay?
So are we expecting everybody, like, when it goes into that, are you expecting people to actually file it, like, if it's podiatry and they have 100 appointments,
You can just put it in here,
it doesn't matter to have all podiatry
No.
together?
because we can pull it out and figure that out, okay? And so, these are annual, the consults will go in there. My favorite thing to do is purchase these POSs and the MARs. So, in this book, all you need right now for POs is you need your over-the-counter form, up to date and signed. You need a yearly signed position order, and then you need July's PO. Okay, so everything else, so in here, under POs, it should be January through June 2021. You'll find in your books everything back to 2018. So if you've got all of that, just let me know, because those have to get up here. Molly's up to 2016, and now we're gonna have to go back. So please go through them, make sure they go in a correct folder, and bring them up here to us, okay? So the MAR, same thing, and this is what makes the folders go from this big to this big, because you take out all the stuff you don't need. So with the POSs, when you go to file August, you're gonna take July out, you're gonna put July in here, and put August in here. The reason that we do that is, A, you always have an active file with everything that you need, 12 months, makes this a lot smaller, and then next year, when we go to purge our files, instead of having to go through everything, we just take it out of here, put it in a manila envelope, that envelope comes back here, and you start over, okay? Nursing summaries and labs. Labs, I've kept most of them, and usually there's not a ton, but I know you guys were asked to collect those, and I don't necessarily, until the nurses guide us on doing something else, I would keep the labs in here. The immunization and test, those go here, and that would include anything like a mammogram, a colonoscopy, other tests that they've done, and those cannot come out of the book, okay?
So we keep them in the book, excuse me, until we get the next mammogram
And then you file.
colonoscopy. Okay.
So this form, and this isn't even one that I've seen, but this form drives me nuts because nobody ever fills it out. So one of the things I've done is start printing off the immunizations from Thera so that you have that sheet and doing it every couple of months and putting it in with the immunizations. Because I can tell you, most of these will have 2 entries, maybe 3, and nothing else. I am gonna talk to Sarah West, I would like to do away with this.
Like the ones that aren't technically yearly, like, I don't know, if it comes to like mammograms or colonoscopies and stuff, aren't we gonna have to back file anyways? If we get a new one? Okay. So we're gonna have to get that from the home and bring it up here and then file it.
Yeah, okay, so I've got a chain of authority or whatever on how to do that. So, with accountability, that's what I keep messing up. So nursing summaries, you just need to keep 1 in here. You also need to keep the swallow study in with the nursing summaries. And then there is a tab in here for your nursing summaries. Okay? It should make it extremely easy to keep up with this book, to do your directives, and also to make sure that when you purge next year, it's going to be as simple as possible. Because right now it's been a nightmare. What have I forgotten? Oh, wait, I had
The reviews too?
Huh?
They give your reviews, since it said they are in summaries.
The RN summaries you have to keep for a year, but once we put them in here in an envelope, so in 2022, we're gonna purge, and 21 will go in an envelope, and then 20 will come back here so that you have a year's worth.
I think
You
he was
said,
asking about the reviews that the PS is due, so we just put just that 1 month, so like July
Yeah.
would be in there right now, and then the rest.
Yeah. Okay, so, again, documents removed from your case record book and your medical record book, including physicians, MAR, and controlled substance sheets. I find controlled substance sheets all over the place, and I get it, because they're in a separate notebook, but if they are specific to a person, they should go with that MAR once you finish, okay? Nursing summaries, consults, and then with the case record book, evaluations, release forms, and leases. Leases is a big one right now with people moving all over the place. So please take a look at your lease and make sure it's got the correct names on it, otherwise we need to update it. Some people aren't with us anymore and their names are still on the lease. I've seen one that they had the wrong name of what we call the apartment on there, so please check your leases. Most of them will say that they roll over month to month, and that's fine as long as they have the correct names on it and they're signed. I think, so your case record book, you also have a table of contents. This one's pretty big, but John's been with us for a long time. So you just follow that form, the checklist, and that's how you will put everything in. So you'll have a general admission tab, a release tab, financial information, evaluations, employment, and inventory. And then everything goes behind those tabs. And hopefully I have enough tabs so that you can put them in, they don't tear, and hope they don't fall apart like the other ones do. So that's how we do that. So I gave you a picture because a lot of times it's written down here. We really need it in the left-hand corner with an opening this way so that it makes it easier for us to seal and put it in, and we can always see who it is.
Are you gonna send us that PowerPoint?
Yes, yes. January 15th, 2020 is when we'll completely purge this file, and we'll bring 2020 here. So July 15th, 2022, which sounds so long from now, but it's not. We will purge again. It will be all of the documents, and you'll still put it in an envelope that looks like this. 2021 will stay on site. This will start being 2022, and these will be your most active current forms. Got it? Okay. I go out, these envelopes, these forms, and these forms are protected by HIPAA and should be locked. So if you have cabinets that are not lockable, we need to talk. I used to have cabinets that, when I ran HUD programs, that wouldn't lock or we lost a key, and we could get somebody to come out and rekey those. So I'll talk to Trend to see if that's something that we can do. A lot of sites just don't have anything to put hanging files in. We need to talk to your PD and get something ordered so that they do and that they lock. And a lot of times, I mean, for smaller ISLs, you can put these in, the books in, and the envelopes.
Yeah, 'cause that's what I was gonna say, it's probably those places.
For these.
File cabinet for things like that, I think that's why they do it all over.
Yeah, we're gonna do away with papers being all over the place.
Yeah.
So if we can get small file cabinets or whatever you need to be able to do this. Also, if you only have one computer, and it would be easier if you had a tablet or something like that, let the PD know. I will help advocate for you to get more equipment. It's the number one thing the DSPs tell me on why they don't get their shipments in, is that they have to wait, they're ready to go. And so, the other thing on shift notes is I've seen people that will come in at 7, and then they're leaving at 3, and they start their shift note at 2, but they put 2 as the time, so we're missing an hour. And it drove me nuts trying to figure out why we were missing an hour. A lot of times it was the nighttime shift. Put their full shift. Even if they write their shift note early, if something changes, they can go back and make a, what's that called at the bottom? Oh, what?
It's like a follow-up or.
A follow-up on there, but they need to put their entire shift because 24 hours has to be covered to be billable.
So I have a quick question, like, so it's like 2 overlaps of shifts that's gonna be at one of my locations, like, one's gonna be 2 to 10 and 3 to 11. So would they have to do that, like, that 3 to 11 person, will they have to do like that 10 to 11? Or how is that with the shift notes? I know they were having problems with that, because it's 2 to 10 and the 3 to 11.
So the 3 to 11 would write 3 to 11, and then your other one would write the other time.
The 2 to
Now,
10,
yeah, here's what I find is that when they overlap like that, they contradict each other.
yes.
And so, in my opinion, I would assign somebody to write that, but they have to include that 2 to 3.
Okay.
So as long as 24 hours are covered, I have seen way too many duplications and they don't match. But if you're reading your shift notes, you'll catch it, okay? The documents are kept in a secure place. It's the PS's responsibility to make sure that the envelopes get back to the site. And then it's the PD's responsibility to make sure that they are put into the file room. We have a brand new file room and it's gonna look great once we get it finished. But, and it'll be in order. So hopefully we have everything we need to try to get as organized as possible. I get a lot of questions about odds and ends, paperwork that's just kind of spread all over the place. Sometimes these are meeting notes, sometimes these are med checks where they've got several people's names on them and not just one person's. I'm trying to think of others, but temperature checks, there's been a lot of things that people ask me, okay, what do I do with this? And it's taking up a lot of room. Put it in an envelope. Tell me what it is, what year it is, and what location it is, and just send it to me. Because I'll put it at the bottom of the files, and then if I need it, I'll sort through it. But if you will put it in an envelope and just send it to me, it'll get out of your house. Okay? We do have new forms, and we are going to send this out. And I know this gets really frustrating. The last group was very vocal about forms changing, they don't know what forms to use. We have been working on we have had a forms team that have been working to get the forms standardized. Those have all been given the green light by Sarah West. So we're gonna send those out. They're in a one,
OneDrive.
oh, what?
The OneDrive, they should be working on everybody's computers at the location in RSPS's computers to have access to those. So that way when there's a change of form, it'll get switched out on all the computers.
So these are the most up-to-date forms. They're the new release form that says it's good for 1 year. The training calendar, resident training calendar, goes at the very beginning of your case record book, and they need to be individualized. So you put their name on it, and then you just initial and date when you provided that training. We have talked to the training department to come up with some additional topics. So if you have one that's not particularly appropriate for some of your residents, that you have other training topics to choose from, as well as giving you some strategies on how to train on what's there. So I think that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do. So that's the residence training calendar, right? So when, like, they have their residence meeting?
Yeah, it's been that we've been signing in on a sign-in sheet. Well, there's a HIPAA violation if we put that sign-in sheet in everybody's folder. And so if they request a training calendar, which they have, it needs to be for that person. It can't be a sign-in sheet that has a lot of different names on it. Otherwise, we have to black it all out. Does that make sense? So we decided just to go this route. We've got one. It's got everybody's names on it. Oh, forgot that part. So, we are moving from CARF. Those of you who have been here a while know what that is. We are moving from that certification to licensure and certification. So L&C. It is very specific in some things. I really like it because it gives us more explanation of what they want, and it's pretty specific. So at one point, Mark and I will come to each site and do that, and I will send out kind of the licensure information. It's only the first 24 pages, and I'll figure out how to cut out the rest because it looks like it's huge. But that way you can read over it. There's some new safety things on there, some tornado drill updates. But when I come out to your sites, I'll kind of go over that with you as well. Okay. And at some point, we will do safety checks. Don't know when that's going to be. Tired of scheduling them and rescheduling them. So, and I'll be at Carriage soon. So if you have other questions for me, I'll be here after the training. Just come up and I'll try to explain.
I got the material that we can go over. There's no material you
Agreed.
just have to go and find and do my own material with it, it's.
I have a lot of
something you
material
have
on
material
general.
to back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna try to come up with,
Yeah, Sarah Mudd and the training department is coming up with all the training things. It's just a matter of us just coming over, helping out with that stuff. Because all of our plates are full right now. But yeah, that's a work in progress of getting training materials for you guys, for the residents and for the staff. And eventually, you guys won't be doing the training because it'll be a training department. So we will be going out doing your staff development trainings.
the other thing that I wanna bring up is we are off the PIP, but one of the things that we promised is that we would do documentation training quarterly. I would like to see you talk about documentation in every team meeting.
I know.
Okay, just give them tips, give them props. I mean, the narratives are getting so much better. The times are still struggling, but the narratives are getting better. So I really think, they need props on that. And so, and anything we can do to make it easier for them to get it done. I would encourage not using the phones.
On general teaching, could you give examples of that? Because anytime I've been to several locations, and anytime you ask the staff, I don't know if they know what that means, and they never have a story.
So with licensure and certification, we're gonna need staff to be able to articulate some of the things that we're doing. So yes, that is something that we'll work on. Correct, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So, and we've done one, And I think it went really well. It's just staff need to be able to articulate some of the things that they're gonna ask staff. So we'll be working on that.
And then also we're looking at is for our different levels of individuals, or high functioning, low functioning, we're looking into getting somebody in here that'll help and train with those. So maybe somebody that's verbal might understand something more than somebody that's nonverbal, so we'll be able to help with that too.
So any questions? You wanna catch me after? That'd be great. EJ's gonna go over ISP documentation. So let me know how the shift forms go. I think it will really help because you will have documentation when you have to give verbal warnings for not doing documentation. It's a lot of documentation talk. Okay? All righty.
So I'm just gonna go over ISP data and personal outcomes. Most of you guys know what personal outcomes are, the things that individuals are interested in learning and doing within the next year. One of my biggest things about those is making sure that when you guys are holding their plan meetings, that is outcomes and goals that the individual wants to do, not what the support coordinator wants to do. A lot of times I know a lot of support coordinators are out there and they want to throw 3 outcomes for one individual to do within a planning, and that's usually too much. And most of the time the individual don't even want to do it, and staff don't even document on it because the individual don't want to do it. So always make sure when you guys go to your plan meetings, making sure that the guardians involved, your program specialists involved, your RS, the support coordinator, as well as the staff that works well with the individual, because if they're the ones that are actually going to be helping them get to that outcome and to achieve it, then they're going to be the ones that are going to have to work with the individual to help them succeed. So of course, this is just what the support coordinator develops, personal outcomes, what they want to work on in life. So if you have any pushback for support coordinators, you're like, no, look, we have this plan meeting, this outcome, we know this individual, it's not really going to work for this individual. Reach out to your supervisors, that way they can reach out to their supervisor at ETAS, and then we might have to have another meeting, because there's no use in having outcomes that the individuals are going to want to do. For instance, I had an individual that's 80 years old who's interested in horses. She wrote an outcome that he will learn how to ride a horse. At 80 years old, he's not going to learn how to ride a horse. So just making sure that you guys are making sure that they're outcomes that the individuals really want to do. It is our responsibility as agency and a provider that we have to develop the implementation strategies. So this helps the individual achieve his or her outcomes and related to goals. So as part of the PS responsibility, we're supposed to be doing those implementation strategies to help the steps for staff to help that individual achieve that outcome.
Can we talk about a cheat sheet here? Because when I go out, they're supposed to have read the ISP, right? But there is a way to print off, the ISP is a PDF, and then there's one underneath it, I can't remember what it's called. But it has the goals on there.
Yeah, I
And
seen
so
that. Is it there, like?
It's in
Yeah,
there.
I seen it.
So if you can print that off, then it's really easy for them to see what the goals are, because after you read the ISP, and it's really, there's a lot in there, I would print that off. If there's special restrictions, I would definitely add that after you print it. But for those sites that I've asked to do that, it's worked really well, because it's a reminder to staff that this is what this person is supposed to be working on. And these are some ideas of things that we can do with them.
And also, like if there's community outings or whatever, I always put those on the activity calendar so staff know that, hey, so-and-so has to go out once a week in the community, and these are the dates that's planned. And now if they go on a different date, that's fine, but at least we know that that has to be done at least weekly. So good implementation strategies focus on engagement of the individual, how the individual learns best, if teaching is involved, teaching instruction, and what it takes to reach the goals and measurable progress. And measurable progress is just making sure that you have those little steps so that way they can meet this goal besides that. So it's just taking those baby steps. So first, if there was somebody wanting to go out in the community, first you're gonna have to research or have to look or see what they're interested in or find out what they're interested in. And that's just by looking at magazines, things on TV, if they like different music, movies, whatever it might be, just to make sure that you have something measurable that would be like, okay, if this is met once a day or once a week or whatever it is, that it's getting done that once a week. Does that make sense? So for an example, this is an outcome for Suzie. Suzie is supported to help host activities. Her goal will be at least quarterly, Suzie is invited to help out with activities being hosted around her home. So what would be some good implementation strategies for Suzie to help meet this goal?
And having Suzie, like, basically with staff, figuring out what she's interested in posting, like if it's a party or just go from there, whether that's then planning what is needed, supply list, purchasing, and then implementing the activity.
Definitely have to ask questions, so you'll know that what that person is even interested in, so you wanna, go to different people, so you wanna go around and ask what they're interested in the home, so that you will know the activities that you will be planning for.
So yeah, those are all good, and when you, the PSs, put those implementation strategies there, just making sure that you do that. So, you know, once a week, staff will sit with Suzie to help work on this, so that way you know if it's met weekly or not. Another one is getting out in the community. Jane will plan a vacation to Branson with staff and roommates. Jane will make a list of what she needs and save money for it. So what would be a good implementation strategies for this?
Sitting with Jane, getting the dates, when it's gonna happen. Just talking to her, what was needed, just gotta sit with her, definitely, and start getting dates, and just get the information, and what you want to do, and plan and stuff.
So those are all good strategies. And then one of the things that when you guys pull, or when your PSs pull their documentation, that staff is documenting correctly on what they're supposed to be documenting on for their outcome. So for this is just an example. One of the things that we changed, and I know I went around and asked a lot of people there, were like they put the shift time on the beginning and end time, it really needs to be how many, what they worked on for that outcome. So for instance, I'm working the 7-3 shift, but I'm only helping Jane work on her outcome from 11 to 11:30, then I would just put 11 at the begin time, and the end time would be 11:30. So now I only worked on that outcome with Jane 30 minutes of my 8-hour shift. Does that make sense?
I think that's gonna be hard though with somebody like, and I know this person, so when it comes down to having 5 different outcomes, and I have a few different people at Kimbrough that have, you know, 5+ outcomes. You start working on, say, the hosting, and then an hour later you're working on the baking, and then an hour later you're working on the crafts, and then 2 hours later you're working on chores, and then you go off to McDonald's and get a drink. How would they do that?
It would be separate entries.
So then you just put did not work on this outcome, did not work on this, did not work. Because then you're gonna have a lot of people that just don't wanna, and this is just from my perspective, I wouldn't wanna go back and document 6 different times, personally.
I wouldn't want to document did not work on this. Okay?
Right, so that's where I'm saying it's gonna be hard to force staff to say, okay, especially with 5 different outcomes, didn't work on any of these, but I worked on community from, you know, we went from 9 AM to 9:30, and then go back at 10 to do this, plus I still have key logging to do at the end of my shift. So
I
think-
agree.
I'm fearful that that's gonna now
agree.
turn it to me saying, now I have to write 106 memos because people don't wanna go back and document on 8 different
I'm
outcomes.
hoping in SetWorks we will not have to. At this point though, we have to pull the data for outcomes out of the outcomes data. And when I pull them right now, I'm getting a big fat 0 on clinician.
Right, but I'm saying on this, like
Yeah.
this specifically, I think you're gonna end up having no documentation if you're wanting people to do a begin time on each specific outcome. And I don't know if anybody else agrees, but I just know that I personally wouldn't wanna do that, so I fear that we're just gonna not have any documentation at all.
Well, we don't already, but.
Well, at some locations.
Some locations do. The thing is that when you put your full shift, it looks like that they worked on that outcome for your entire shift. And that's not really what happened. Let's problem solve that, Jess, and maybe between me and you and EJ, we can figure out a way to make staff double documentation. I hate double documentation because I want, in your shift notes, I want some of that information too. But the only way you can pull this report to show progress is to put it in the data collection.
So, like she's saying, if somebody has multiple outcomes on the same day, why can't we just generalize that? Like, Susie went to McDonald's, for a few minutes or 30 minutes, and we came back home. Then the next outcome, she did it, like, just generalize that it was done, because when you put the, ISP data report, you can see where they did, like, she did that, instead of putting like time frame, like, we did this 30 minutes and we went somewhere 40 minutes, because that would be really time consuming. I would rather leave it in a general format where we say, we went down in the park, for 30 minutes, then we passed by McDonald's, we grabbed a drink, came back home, she was on like 20 minutes for 20 more minutes, so it's just a general thing.
So
Because once you pull, from the report, you
Because we're not being, when we run our annual reports, it's looking like we're not completing outcomes.
I don't think we need clock times on them, if that's what the question is.
Right.
So there's a way to remove the begin time and end time when we set up those outcomes. And we can just do that. And they don't know.
And some of the outcomes you only have to report on every two weeks or, once a month. And so if you do that cheat sheet, it actually prompts your staff to remember when to do it. I don't know what you guys think about writing did not work on this outcome. I know some of the PDs like you to do that, some don't. It seems to me like you're having to go to two different places, but the argument is then people remember to go to two different places. So that's, for me, that's totally up to your supervisor. For me, I want to pull a report that shows information and shows progress.
And that's what we're lacking at, is a lot of that progress on what we're doing to complete those outcomes. Because even on our reviews, you just write a journal statement. It's not like that. If I'm supposed to go out in the community once a month, it should be detailed. Be like, EJ went out in the community, 3 times out of this, 4 times out of the month. Instead of just a journal statement. Does that make sense? Because then it's showing that, okay, yeah, he went out 3 times this month. Maybe that 4th time I wasn't feeling well. Or, I didn't work on it any time this month, to show that I didn't feel like doing anything. Does that make sense? So we have to make it where it's more measurable than just a general statement. EJ went out to McDonald's and blah, blah, blah.
actually, that's what most of the outcomes are, like, 3 times this week, twice a month or whatever. That's better than giving us a time frame, like how many minutes they spend on this outcome.
That's fine. If that gives you the information you need and your PD says it's okay, I think it's fine. That is a goal across the board. Every time I look at any ISP, for the most part, they're gonna have going out in the community.
I guess I'm confused as to, so when we pull the report, I'm looking at, like, for baking, for instance, like, I'm seeing what her implementation strategies are, and I'm looking for, has she achieved being able to bake independently? Because if so, I want that outcome off of her plan entirely. Whereas, like, it seems like, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong, you guys are just wanting, if it says bake 3 times a month, you want staff to put in their bake. You don't care about how she baked, what she baked, if she did it independently?
No, that's not. We want to know that.
So on our monthly reports, are you guys just wanting us to put bake 3 times this month? Like, you don't want how it, like, I guess that's where I'm confused. Because if it's measurable, and I'm putting on my report that, she baked cookies this month, and brownies, and, I don't know, a pie, then to me, she baked 3 times a month, she's good to go. But are you looking for it rather to be, she baked 3 times this month?
I really have it big 3 times this month, because then I'll show that she met that goal or not.
Unless her goal is to do it independently, and then you need to write whether she did it independently. This part is the most confusing to me, I will be quite honest.
It'll get better once the role
Mostly
is
because we have
set.
0 data in there.
Because when you do the implementation strategy of the set words, it's pretty specific on how you're supposed to run it.
And I do look for this stuff in shift notes, so.
Is there gonna be a time that the outcomes is on the same page as the shift notes so that they don't have to, so they'll remember it's just all in one.
In SetWorks, it's like that.
Great.
Yeah, SetWorks, they
Never
don't
get
have
there.
the whole thing for that one individual one.
That would
And
be
then staff
so
can't even
nice.
complete it until it's completed.
so much better, yes.
It is. So hopefully we'll get there soon, but in the meantime, we have to go to a couple of different places.
People just forget. I mean, staff
Yeah.
just forgets. They do their T-logs and then they forget.
That's why I think if you have those cheat sheets, you can remind them when you go into the home, makes it a little easier.
So I just divided it, if I got two staff on shift, I told one of them to do all the 6 logs and the other one to do all the ISP data, just to, and the person that's like the strongest with documenting and not too much, like has a better documentation, that's the one the strength I go to.
That's how I did it last week.
But they're to
So the
document.
cheat sheet works, like you said, having it right there where they can see like a little book, say outcomes, and they can just flip through and see it right there instead of
Yeah.
going to.
Because going through those ISPs is a major. So I have goodies for everybody to take back. I have black notebooks for your medical record books, so we can get rid of all those white ones that don't snap anymore. And I have plastic, so I have these, so that you can put in your books. They don't fall apart, you don't lose everything. Have very special markers that you can write on that are very small. Have extra Sharpies, hanging files, files to purge. I tried to get as much stuff as I can. Once you run out of them though, you'll have to order them for your sites, and please do, because I've been loading them in my car and I prefer not to do that anymore. So, Office Depot over here. So if you need some stuff, let's get it now. And before you do, I tried to set you up to be happy because this is going into effect September 1st. So I need all files purged by September 1st. So I know it's a lot, but I gotta get that stuff into the file room or we're out of compliance. Okay? All right, meet me over here one at a time and I'll give you your stuff.
Can I come back? I have